Okay, so yesterday I decided to call on a talk station on YouTube, and the topic was what's wrong with Christianity. So I couldn't resist, and I'm the last caller of that evening. I realize this is all in reverse on the TV, I know. But so I'm only showing the part that I participated in, but I will put the full link in the description. This is the first time I've ever called into a show like this, so I'm sure I made a few mistakes. But if you liked my effort and would like to see more call-ins, let me know in the comment section below. So what I'm going to do to kind of mix things up is I'm going to play on here, and those are going to be reversed. I'll put the link, but I'm going to play the part that I participate in, and let you guys watch a little bit of video game while listening. So here we go. We'll try this out.
Was that your first time doing ayahuasca? Is that like a one-time experience? Did you do like 3 sessions?
I've done ayahuasca twice. I've done mescaline 3 or 4 times, and I've done
somebody else.
peyote once.
Thomas, you don't
I've
think
done acid and all kinds of other stuff a lot too.
Sorry about that.
Thomas, he's on any other substance.
Background. I grew up as a Christian, like in a Christian. Sorry, trying to get just right here.
So before long, you'll come in contact with entities that will actually.
Oh, jeez. Up to you.
Why don't you just do one?
It's of my own channel. If
into like a demon, he'll scare you.
All right, Brady. Brady.
Sorry about
I
that.
know Thomas wants to talk about this forever. I got two other people on the line.
No, I'm good. You go ahead.
Bro, feel free to call back. I didn't even get a chance to respond to you. Let's do that another time, because, man, they are so high on this conversation. I don't even know what's
up. Do you guys want to make
a
conversation specifically about things we've encountered on trips? Like, that's a podcast I'm actually looking forward to making. And I'm ready to do that whenever anyone's ready, But I'm going to pass the mic. You guys have a good night.
Hey, man, later. All right, so we're getting into psychedelic drugs as an argument against Christianity. I'm not exactly sure what the argument was.
No, I was not arguing against Christianity. I was just saying if he was handing out free psychedelics, I wanted them. All the other stuff, I don't know too much about. We could talk about that another time, but.
So we've been going for almost 3 hours here. We got 2 more callers. I'm happy to go as long as you guys want. Thomas, Trav, Scott, whatever you guys think. Talking about the problems with Christianity, what are the issues.
I don't think you're going to have any end of atheists call in and want to talk to you. I think you've got you being the only one here, brother, and I'm sorry, but you're going to have to contend. So
I love it.
Enter at your own risk.
Right on. Andrew, come on in. What do you got, buddy? Andrew? He's probably waiting so long he passed out. That's my bad. That's on me, Andrew. That's not on you.
I'm here.
Hey, what's up? Yeah. What you got, man?
Hey, sorry about that. I've never used this app before.
No worries.
Is there a way I can get you on the speaker on through here? It's kind of hard to hear you. I'm not sure how the app works. I can work with this if I need to.
I'm not really sure if you can do it through your phone or through the app.
Well, I'm on my phone.
Okay.
That's okay. I'll work with this. I won't be as charming as talking about psychedelics, but so I actually have my own channel. If I have permission, like you guys can look at it for yourself just to verify. I don't want to throw it out there without you guys' permission. But I have a channel where I actually go through like the Bible itself and debunk like ideas and go over things that are like obviously wrong. And I don't want to like go through all that at once. I was trying to stick to something simple.
Just pick one.
Since your topic is what's wrong with Christianity.
Yeah.
So I got 3 different points. I don't know if you want me to run through them all at once, or if you want me to go through each one and you guys can kind of tackle them one by one. It's up to you.
Why don't you just do one by one for simplicity's sake?
Sounds fair. Okay, so the second 2, actually, I referred to some specific verses to make points, so that might make it easier.
Sure.
So with my first point, and this is let me give you a quick background. I grew up as a Christian, like in a Christian household and stuff. I didn't lose, quote, faith in Christianity until like I was on my own back in like 2016.
Oh yeah.
So like I grew up as a Christian. I know what it's like to actually believe and to, you know, and everything. And I've actually re-looked at the book, and that's what I'm doing now in the past year. So, I'm sorry, did you say something?
I was just agreeing. I was saying that's good. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm just saying, like, I can relate to certain things, but like I also feel like, okay, I'll just read my point because I have this pre-written.
Yeah.
Something that I've had questions about since I was a kid is that diversity of understanding a single book has led to many interpretations. Truth can't have many interpretations. A science book or a math book is true because it has been proven without a doubt, regardless of who reads it. So, like, this is my first point that I'd like you guys to kind of tackle if you want. If it's God inspired, like I don't know whether or not, you know, you guys are, and it may be variable, whether it's you guys take it literal or in parable. So that might help, but there's still points later that it won't matter. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, I take the Bible naturally. I think the Bible intends it to be read a specific way. So whether it's poetry, apocalyptic, physical, literal, or just literal according to the liturgy or literature. That's
right. I didn't know if you was fundamentalists or if you was kind of, like, I grew up in a Southern Baptist church. Okay. So like not everything was literal, but they kind of cherry picked what they wanted to be literal.
For sure.
You have to believe that Jesus died on the cross, and you have to believe in the flood. Everything else can be a parable, like being swallowed by a giant fish and stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like their exegesis was just kind of weak and a little bit more self-serving and event-driven in terms of trying to get people so they could hear the pastor speak so they could have more baptisms. They'd probably be more Arminian in their version of soteriology as well as premillennial dispensational in their eschatology, and that is going to have some serious, serious effects on how that church behaves and whether or not they're actually part of Jesus' church.
Sure. And like, okay, you actually remind me of the fourth point. I'll throw this in here. Like, I was baptized when I was 7 years old, and like, because you reminded me of that point. And to me, looking back on that, like, that makes no sense. As a full-grown adult, like, I try to talk to my own parents about this and other adults that believe. That's one thick book. Like, I love Stephen King, but it took me forever to get through the Bible, and like. There's no way a 7-year-old can comprehend what they're, vowing their entire life to. I think that that's not right. And like that's where I believe, like that's brainwashing. Any thoughts on that before I move to the actual point two?
I mean, yeah. So you're getting into a pretty big topic, which is baptism, right? What is the meaning and purpose, right? Are you more Southern Baptist or Reformed Baptist in your view of what baptism is for and when it is to be done, or are you more?
What was taught to me, as far as baptism, it was the idea of like, when you say that you believe in Jesus, and then like, and you confirm that with the pastor, and then they dunk you in the water, you come out, and you're like, I'm not really sure how else to explain that, other than I don't think that anybody can be convinced that they truly believe something when you don't understand the context of it. That's all I was going to get at with that.
I would
There's no way children can understand that depth. No matter if you're a Mormon, if you're a Catholic, if you're a Jehovah's Witness. I don't know if they all. I'm sure they all have, because they all have different interpretations. They may do it differently, which is part of my first point. Like, how can a God-inspired book inspire so many different versions of the same idea? Mm-hmm. It kind of sounds like it would be the God of confusion rather than the God of truth, or at least do something to correct it.
Sure, I mean, I would kind of disagree with you on that. I do understand that the Bible and really religions in general can be confusing for people, but what I encourage people to do is to start with what they believe and why they believe it. Like, what is your basic foundational worldview for why you do anything at all, right? Epistemologically speaking, what is your theory of knowledge, right? How do you know what you know?
Sure.
Metaphysically, how do you understand the reality around you? You could even call it veritology, kind of like truth. How do you know it's true? And then morality, how do you know it's ethical? So this is kind of an ethical and knowledge claim against the God of the Bible that says, hey, because there's 3 different versions of baptism, one can't be true. And I would just say that I think that there is one mode of baptism that is true, or view of baptism that is true, but I don't think that if you disagree on baptism, you're outside of God's church. However, I would say that if you have a different God and a different gospel than the Bible says, you are not in the true church, right? So, case in point, I am a Presbyterian, but I can fellowship with a Southern Baptist, really Reformed Baptist is what I would say, because we have the same God and same gospel. Now, a Mormon, we would have different gods and we'd have different gospels, and that's why we would not consider Mormons Christians. And if you are not you, but if people are Mormons and they want to talk about it, happy to talk about it. Not trying to be insulting.
I'm a Luciferian. That's a whole different chapter. That's not even.
Oh yeah.
I said I grew up in a Southern Baptist. I'm not a Christian anymore.
I'm tracking. I'm just kind of speaking to everybody here. And,
sorry.
But yeah, so your question of baptism and how are there so many different baptisms? Like, well, there are different.
Well, no, I didn't mean so many different ones. I think I misled you by that.
No worries.
Well, all I meant was with the baptism, because that was a side note you reminded me of. I just don't think that a 7-year-old could possibly comprehend what they're dedicating their life to. That's all I meant by that. That's not actually one of my point 2 and point 3.
I would honestly say your parents, I think they misled you in what baptism is for.
It was the church, not just them.
Sure, yeah. I'm not trying to be rude or condescending to them, but I think that. Yeah, cool. I think I appreciate it. Nobody else thinks that. Just kidding. Yeah, so I wouldn't say that baptism you need to have a good understanding of who Jesus is to be baptized, because baptism isn't what saves you, and baptism, it's not you like pledging your life to God, right? It's kind of the recognition that you're in God's covenant, and I would get that out of Genesis 17.
Now, I feel like I could go back and forth on this, but I want to go ahead and hit my other 2 points.
Yeah,
and
go for it. Yeah, go for it.
If we have time, then we can talk more.
Go through your point, and then we'll get Angie on, and then we'll bring you back.
Cool. So the second point, and this is where I start referring to the actual book, is so the book itself. All right, God-inspired ? Because whether you are a fundamentalist or take a lot of it in parables as lessons, the things in the Old and New Testament that God condones is outright wrong. So I'll let you kind of hit that, for what you want. That's kind of a vague statement, which is why point 3. No, I'm sorry, I didn't put a space. I do have some points specifically. Do you want to hit that before I give you the specifics? I have some Bible verses of Old and New that describe what I mean by that. It's up to you.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, wherever you.
All right, so
feel free.
I have it separated by God and Jesus, Old and New, because in the Old Testament in Leviticus 27, 3-4 and 7, where's my Bible? There. I don't know if you want me to read it out to you, but I did paraphrase that it has to do with promoting slavery and gives them specific instructions. And then with, and I can read, I do have it open if you want me to, for your audience.
Why don't you just hit the highlights? I believe you. I'll open it up to you.
And then Numbers 31, 17-18 and 35 talks about slavery and, as far as taking out cities and, killing the men and women, but keeping the children that have not shown signs. You know what I'm talking about. So there's that. That's the Old Testament. That's Yahweh or God or whatever talking to Moses, giving him instructions. That's not cool. I don't see how that could possibly be of any form of love. And then Jesus with the New. A lot of people say, well, that's the Old Testament. I've heard this. I'm a fan of Aaron Raw, Matt Gilhonty, and I forget his name, Andrew, Seth Andrews. So, I've heard, that's the Old Testament kind of argument. So I was prepared. New Testament with Matthew 10:34 through 37. Jesus is not for peace. Talks about bringing a sword between family. I don't have it memorized. I do have the book open if you wanted me to read it. Then Matthew 15:11 through 20. where Jesus is discussing like poor ideas, and I question on germ theory. Again, I don't have it memorized, but I do have the book open. I did look this up ahead of time. So like there's several things that like both God and Jesus, new and old, have very poor ideas that even if you didn't take the Bible literally, it's still giving very bad ideas. So whether you okay, yeah, now I'm re-saying what I already said here. So yeah, point 3 was if you think the Bible is literal or not, both God and Jesus are bad ideas. Okay, so that's all 3.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So I would just say let's start with that last one. What do you believe about God and Jesus? Who do you think that the God of the Bible is? Do you think it's two separate gods because you said God and Jesus?
Okay, so this is kind of a weird thing. Where this brings in the Trinity, doesn't it?
Yeah, I
that's
believe
something I've never really. That's always been confusing to me. To be honest with you, and in the end, I don't think it really matters. Like, I never like. Again, in Southern Baptist, and I've always been one of those gray area people where like they quit answering my questions. I'll just be direct with you. So I don't really have a perspective on if there's, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, and God, or if it's just, I mean, if you look at Genesis and one of the early things, God does not sound like he's alone. If they, if they eat of the tree, they've eaten of the tree of knowledge. If they eat of both that and the tree of or the fruit of life, they will be like us. So, like, who is he referring to? Was Jesus already in existence, or was there other gods?
Absolutely.
Zeus up there too. Like that's, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm trying to be a little silly, but like, yeah, like there's a lot to look into that. I don't know how to interpret a trilogy, but I don't see how a God that is knowledgeable enough to create the universe, and I love my science and physics and quantum mechanics, and any God who comprehends and make all that stuff happen should know about the germ theory. And if they really love people, one of the 10 commandments should be wash your hands, rather than don't worry about what you put into your mouth, it's what comes out of your mouth. Like, that's great if you're so, trying to be, I guess, trying to help people, be kind to others, but that's not much for, like, helping society. We had to discover germ theory. I don't see anywhere where Jesus ever healed amputee, right? This is something I'm stealing from Seth Andrews, one of his videos, but, like, and I actually have a verse in here. I didn't have it ready, but, like, there's actually a verse in here that God doesn't even allow people to go into heaven if you have, like, if your downstairs has been damaged. I can look that up if I need to. But, like, there's some things in there that just doesn't make sense for an all-knowing God. So my question to you, rather than the trilogy thing, I hate to answer your question with a question is, do you think God is all-knowing? And if he is, then where is the freedom? Like, how can we have free will if, if he knows everything, then first off, this book is a very poor idea to follow if you're, like, trying to be constructive for humanity. I got other things I could go on, but I know you got other people. So, yeah, I'll let you speak. I don't know where else to go with that.
Yeah, so you brought up a lot of points, right? So the first point I think was kind of a diversity of understanding, the single book. There's lots of interpretations. Truth can't have that many interpretations. You like your science, your math books. Like, if it's God inspired, how can he create so much confusion, right? The second point was kind of like parables as lessons, God versus Jesus. That's where we kind of talked about the Trinity. I'll tell you the biblical position from my point of view, the Reformed kind of view of Christianity, is that the Trinity is how God exists as one being, right? It's not the Mormon God where there's three beings, right? It's not the...
I wasn't really sure where the trilogy come into 3, but, like, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, so when we talk about, you actually quoted it in Genesis when it says, let us make man in our image. If they eat this, they will be like us. Isaiah 43:10 talks about there is only one God. In fact, he doesn't know of any other gods. Isaiah 44:8 talks about the Trinity as well. Then we go all the way to the New Testament in John 1:1. It says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's talking about Jesus. It'll go on in John 1:14 as to Jesus entering in his own creation and becoming flesh. And then you can go to John 16:13, I believe it is, maybe it's 14, where it talks about the Holy Spirit and the Holy Spirit as a He, and He will guide you into all truth. So the bottom line is the Bible consistently talks about there is only one God, one being of God, but there are three persons of God, and they're co-equal and co-eternal.
Is it like a split personality? I feel like I don't want to be too silly with you though. Like I feel like that's kind of a silly question.
But yeah, so it's not modalism. Modalism is kind of what you're talking about, where the God is at one time he's the Father, and then he changes into the Son, and then he changes into the Holy Spirit.
It sounds more like a Hydra with like one body and three heads or something.
So it would be one being of God. Think of it as like this. So we're in a room, you and I are together, and we're with Thomas, and I say, "Hey, who is that?" And I point at Thomas. Well, you would say, "Oh, that's Thomas. That's who he is." But what if I looked at him and I said, "What is that?" What would you say?
That's a human.
That's a human being, right? So we don't exist as God, but you can see how there is a being of human. We're not one being, but I can exist as an it or a what, and I can exist as a who. That's what it says in the Bible, right? So there's one being of God, and they have separate like persons, right? And they function differently, have different functions. And I say that just because that's what I believe the Bible says, is the verses I quoted you, and then throughout the Bible you can kind of see how God interacts as those three persons with people.
Okay, now, like I don't want to like derail you. I hope you.
All good. But yeah, we can go on to the other stuff he said. I just wanted to.
Yeah, with like the Old and New Testaments and stuff, and like what I was quoting, and I didn't want to read it out loud unless you had time for me to flip through all the pages. But I did give you the actual notes if you wanted to look at them yourself and read them. Like, how is that good on either the Old or New Testament? Like either of these, it's not good. None of these is something that I would tell somebody that if I was a god, I wouldn't tell people, fear me to worship me. Like, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess I would just say, what is your standard of good? Because you're using your own personal standard of good.
Productive. Good is productive. Bad is not productive.
Okay, so why do you say that? Who told you that? Why do you believe that? That's your foundation.
Observation.
Productive.
If you...
Okay.
Well, I mean, if you do... Let's say that you try to help people, in general. You don't have to be a Christian to be good-willing. I'm sure you agree with that. Mm-hmm. So, like, if I go out of my way to, let's say, pick up trash on the side of the road at night, every other, maybe twice a week. It's an easy example. Well, whether it tells me I do it or not, I know that it looks better, and I know that other people agree. I actually got told the other day that it doesn't better. This is something I've been doing. But my point is that it's good as far as productive because you can tell a difference, and it is. Would you rather have the yard with trash or not trash? Like, you would rather have. I assume most people don't like trash in the yard, stuff like that. So, but on the flip side, so that's productive because you're not just helping yourself, because I think it's an eyesore, and getting rid of it, throwing it away makes me feel better, but it also makes the environment better as well. So, like, there's a lot of variables you go into that as far as how is that productive. It helps the environment. It helps other people feel better. People feel better if they're not seeing trash everywhere. And then what's not productive, right? Like, instead of saying sin, I had this conversation with my friend the other day who is a Christian, and he kept using the word sin a lot. And I said that sin doesn't exist. Sin is a Christian idea. He said, well, how does that make sense? And this is exactly kind of the same argument we're making here, is that, goes back to productive and unproductive. Well, if I ran around stabbing people, like, would that be productive for other people? No, because they would be hurt, and it certainly wouldn't be productive for me, short term or long term, because, hopefully somebody would call the cops on me and I'd be in prison. Or worse, somebody would just shoot me. So, like, that's not productive. It doesn't have to be, the good or bad is just decide on whether or not something is productive or not.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's how I view it.
That's a very utilitarian way. It's a cool. I like that. It's a cool, interesting way to put it. I've never heard anybody put it. Productive
It's
and
not my
non-productive
idea. I got it from some other atheist videos.
okay.
I like it, and I stuck with it.
I'm gonna still consider it your idea. I thought it was a
very okay. Thank you.
That's a very cool. That's a very cool way of looking at it. I just wanted to point that out to you.
Well, there's a channel called Truth Hurts, and he's an ex-Jehovah's Witness, and I got it from his channel. But I'm sure I've heard similar versions of it from like Seth Andrews and Aaron Raw.
Well, it's very similar to John Stuart Mill's principle of utility. You know what that one is, right?
That one I'm actually not familiar, but I'll listen. Okay. I'm sure you.
It's. I won't say it's similar to our Captain Travis Pangburn's maxim, but it is. Let me see if I can look it up for the definition for you. Principle of utility. 1 second, Josh. I apologize.
No big deal. You got it.
All right. So, the principle of utility states that actions or behaviors are right and moral insofar as they promote happiness or pleasure, and wrong as they tend to produce unhappiness or pain.
Okay.
So that was what he came up with back in the day.
Happiness is an emotion. Pain is a physical result of something.
So he's saying pleasure good, pain bad. That's all he's really saying.
Okay. I guess that's similar. I don't know if it's the same as like constructive or not, but it does sound similar.
Well, you were talking about like long-term
pleasure are not always good. I'm an ex-smoker of a cigarette. Just because it brought me pleasure doesn't mean it was good. And there are things that are bad.
Right. That long-term, short-term, what you were talking about a second ago, the long-term, short-term deleterious effects of your choice, to stab somebody, that's kind of like a selfish altruism, you know what I mean? Where you can say, well, even if I didn't give a damn about this other person, I don't need to stab them because that's going to cause me a lot of problems, and it's better if they go about their job and provide me utilities, right?
Sure.
So,
I mean, like, even if you're trying to rob people and you're like on the road, sidewalk or something, like, it's not productive long term. Even if you maybe got a few people and made a few bucks, like, somebody's going to turn you in, hopefully, catch you, and like, you're bound to mess up eventually. So long term, it's still bad. In short term, you could run into the wrong person and just get shot then and there. So, I guess I don't think that there's a necessary for sin as much as is what you're doing productive or not for yourself and for others and the environment. That's how I see that.
I got you.
Yeah, I think kind of the Christian perspective, it would push back on that and say, hey, what is your standard of good, right? So we said to be good willing, we're going to pick up trash on the side of the road twice a week, we're going to be productive.
But I'm also being... Hold on, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to admit something. I'm doing it selfishly, like as a Luciferian, and I'm not going to drift too much into that, but like I acknowledge that we are all selfish, and that things that we do, like even if you think you're doing something good, like cleaning the trash up. If I was maybe 8 years ago having this conversation, because I've been an ex-Christian for 6, but let's say, if I was in high school doing this, I would say, well, I'm doing this because for everybody else. But the chemical that is produced in your brain that feel good is still there. So, like, as a Luciferian, like, I admit that I am doing it because it's an eyesore to me, but I also know that in the process I'm helping others. So, like, acknowledging that we are selfish and that these impulses that we do are for ourselves first, like, makes a difference. I don't, even though I know I'm being productive, I know that I'm not doing it for everybody else. I'm doing it for me, but it helps others in the process. I'm sorry, go ahead. I just want to admit, like, I'm doing it out of a selfish act is all I was trying to get at.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of, to play off of your trash analogy, like you said, it is selfish. I would see that as not an objective standard with which to apply to everybody, because you said, like, people are throwing trash in the yard. Well, obviously, they don't believe in what you believe. They don't believe in being productive as you believe in being productive. They don't believe in helping the environment as you help the environment. They believe in being productive by getting the trash out of their car or throwing their trash somewhere that's easier for them to get rid of. right? They think trash helps the environment. So how do you differentiate between what you believe and what they believe?
Well, let's see here. Science, I guess that's kind of a really broad term, but like, if something is like, how can I put this? If something decomposes, like if materials were made to where, like, instead of plastic bags, if you had something, I mean, paper bags don't decompose quite quickly, but like they're preferable over plastic. It's still floating around. It's still trash and stuff. And like, there's, go back to the whole germ theory thing, that causes contamination. Contamination helps germs fester, which causes illness, which will eventually cause negative results to other people, as well as the environment and animals. So science would say, and has proven, that a cleaner environment is a healthier one because it's less likely to produce germs and infestations and plagues, as if it goes on long enough. So like, that would be how I would determine which one's more, who is technically correct in that idea, simply by observing. It's not so much of an opinion, I'm right and you're wrong, you're right and I'm wrong, so much as observing what is happening in the environment and which one is productive, which one's not productive. Is it productive to have trash and contamination and increased amount of germs, or is it unproductive to encourage that behavior?
All right, dude. Do you know where the Pangburn hangout on the Discord where we hang out?
I'm not really sure. I just got on this app myself.
Oh,
I'm not really
that's
sure how
cool.
to use it.
Check our chat. I'm sure somebody will be able to post the link.
I think Travis
we've
posted.
had a couple.
I actually clicked on the link from YouTube to get.
Right. So that's the end of where that is. You can watch the rest in full. So I'll leave it there. It's 30 minutes long. And let me know what you think.